Of Mice and Men is not written in a didactic style. In other words, Steinbeck does not directly address the reader, telling them what to think. Instead, Steinbeck lets his characters speak, and through their speech they reveal themselves. This dialogue is realistic, and the poetic style of Steinbeck's descriptions is balanced by the realism of the characters' speech. All the characters have their own distinctive speech pattern, or idiolect. Steinbeck uses accurate colloquial American slang and ungrammatical constructions. This means that the novel's dialogue is always lively and vivid. One typical feature of the spoken language is the double negative. "I won't get in no trouble," Lenny says. Another is the end of words being clipped off, as in George's line, "Might just as well spend all my time telling you things." There is the slang use of ya instead of you, and the use of the letter a in contractions like oughta instead of ought to. They is misused to mean there, seen to mean saw, and of is used instead of the grammatically correct have in sentences such as Candy's admission, "I ought to have shot that dog myself, George." The character's language is also liberally sprinkled with swear words. This again adds to the realism of the dialogue. George calls Lenny a crazy bastard, for example, and Jesus Christ is one of his favourite expressions. Hell and goddamn are words used by all the ranch hands. There is also evidence of slang in the terms bum steer, jailbait, and rat trap. The word nigger is used to describe crooks, showing a society that was unashamedly racist. Language is used which is specific to 1930s travelling workers and to those who work on a ranch. We are told in the narrative that men like tramps and hobos jungle up or camp near the river. Obviously, a lot of the language is specific to the characters' jobs. Slim is a jerkline skinner, Candy is a swamper, and Crooks is a stable book. Their pay is jack, and they buck grain. Lenny's speech pattern is distinctive because it is particularly repetitive. Steinbeck wants to show us that Lenny has a restricted vocabulary. Lenny is not a conversationalist because he doesn't understand how to engage with anyone other than George. When he talks, he tends to speak only about himself, his wants and needs. In dialogue, Lenny frequently repeats George's name. In one early exchange in the clearing, for example, he repeats it 4 times in 5 lines of his dialogue. "I was only fooling George, but I wouldn't eat none, George. George, you want I should go away and leave you alone? I'd find things, George." This repetition highlights not only Lenny's childlike speech patterns, but also his dependence on George. Lenny's speech betrays the fact that he is, as Slim says, just like a kid, which is why George warns him to keep quiet when they get to the ranch and to let George do the talking. George's tone, on the other hand, is often angry, and his sharp style contrasts with Lenny's lumbering repetition. Steinbeck has George snap or explode or say things sharply or fiercely. George uses his voice to control Lenny. So like a parent, George's voice is frequently raised or authoritative in tone. But he is also capable of painting rhythmical, lyrical, poetic pictures, like when he talks about the farm. Curly's wife's voice has a nasal, brittle quality. Her voice is like the brittle veneer of glamour she puts on. Her language is the language of cheap glamour, matching her style. She refers to the men as bindlestiffs and bindlebums. In other words, no-hopers who will achieve nothing. Slim speaks with a natural authority, although he uses as much slang as all the other men. "Well, you ain't doing no harm. I'll give him one of the pups," he tells Crooks. Steinbeck's descriptions, which start each chapter, are rhythmic and powerful. His style is economical, and his ability to describe nature vividly adds to the atmosphere, as in this example. On the sandy bank under the trees, the leaves lie so deep and so crisp that a lizard makes a great skittering if he runs among them. This mixture of styles makes Of Mice and Men a balanced novel.